This is one of my favorites. I think this is an elder-friendly bench. This is an AP photo. I'm afraid I lost the attribution, but it's in North Carolina, and a small town. And these old guys come in probably on a daily basis and sit there and whittle and tell stories. I'd love to sit there and listen to those stories. Parks and Rec Department actually has responsibility for the bench, not Public Works, which is an interesting insight. And they come in once a week and clean up all the whittlings, and so it's ready to go for the next week. Now, you may not want your young child there hearing all those stories, so it's not necessarily an intergenerational environment, but anyway. I wanted to shift the focus a little bit to how we can begin thinking about this issue outside of the context of the individual body and sort of collectivize the issue and think about it as something that affects us all, and what can we do as communities to sort of shift this way we think about aging. Often when you get a group of people together to talk about aging and old age, they get hung up on this question, well, when is old age? Is it 55? Is it 70? Is it 85? And we could debate that question forever. And I would suggest that's the wrong question to ask. We shouldn't be asking when is old age, but we should be asking where is old age. So that begin thinking about aging as a locational phenomenon, if you will, as a way of kind of rethinking and reframing this whole discussion. So I've come to believe, sincerely, that aging is not about time in the body, but it's about place and relationships. And I mean that in not just a kind of metaphorical way, but also in a literal way. And I think the next slide. Yeah, this actually frames it in a bit more academic manner. This is from a very influential article in the field of disability studies that came out a number of years ago, Verbruge and Jeté. And this is a quote that I use a lot, that health and disability and aging refer to the balance between personal capability and environmental demand. Okay, so health and aging and disability is not in the body, it's in our relationship with the environment around us. That includes people, and it includes the physical environment and the natural environment. That's where it exists. That's where it lies. If you're in a wheelchair and you want to go into the library and there's a set of steps there in the library, you're sort of disabled, right? Well, if there's a ramp there, you go up the ramp into the library to read to a child or get a book. Who's to say you're disabled? In fact, who's to say where's the disability? Is it in that person, or is it in that relationship between the person and the environment? And it shifts the conversation away from disabled people towards disabling environments. Okay? What that does too, when you think about it, is reframe aging as an issue as a social and political issue, because it frames it as a community issue. And not just an issue of individual aging. So there are a lot of political consequences with thinking about aging this way that make a difference and will affect the kinds of solutions that a community can come up with as they address aging issues. That's why I call aging an out-of-body experience. That aging is not in the body, it's in our relationship with the environment around us. That's where aging exists. Okay. Wendell Berry, my favorite author, says it much more eloquently than I, in a concept that I find quite sensitizing, that community is the smallest unit of health. Community is the smallest unit of health. And that's true whether we think in sort of macro terms relative to towns and cities, but also within the context of an individual patient, hospice patient dying in a hospital room, the microenvironment of that experience, I think the same principle holds true, that community is the smallest unit of health. It also suggests that we can have health in community as an individual who may be sick or ill. In other words, they're not mutually exclusive. We can have an illness and be healthy if you will. So again, it's a concept that sensitizes us to the role of community and the role of place and its relationship to health in our lives. Okay. So what does this mean about the work that we do and the work that brings you here today? Well, it suggests that our work has to do with creating good places in which to grow old, or what I call livable lifespan communities, if you will. That's what we're about today, and that's what you're going to be involved with this afternoon. And it's a very exciting endeavor to be involved with. Excuse me. So we're not working sort of individually as warriors out there taking care of individual elders, as important as that is. We're kind of coming together to address community-wide issues. What I want to talk about next is some ways to think about that work in communities. How can we go about planning communities that are more elder-friendly or communities that work across the lifetime? And the work that I've been involved with, and many other people around the country, has suggested that there are two important elements of community building around these issues. One is the use of good information and good data. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I mean by that. But also participation, citizen participation. That this is just not the work of the traditional experts. It's not the province only of the Aging Network and the Office on Aging. It's not like they're the sole responsible party. A host of organizations and individuals are the responsible party. And seniors and older people need to be as actively involved in the effort as anybody else, because that's how we learn about the experience. So citizen participation in all its forms becomes a very important part of your strategy. And I think the board met for 3 hours yesterday talking a little bit about next steps. And I think you'll see a lot of work in the area of participation around this issue in the coming months. So what is an elder-friendly community? Well, one way to get people to provide some information to you about what is an elder-friendly community is through the creative arts, if you will. That's one strategy, participation strategy. We did a series of focus groups around the country several years ago before starting a project called the Advantage Initiative that I'm going to talk about. And we asked people that were coming to the focus groups, it was people from age 45 to about 90, sort of all different ages of adults. We asked them, what is an elder-friendly community? We want you to think about that, put together a collage, and bring that to the focus group and talk about your collage. And this was one of our favorites, done by a woman who's about 80, I think. And she brought this to the collage as her rendition, her representation of an elder-friendly community. And I know it's hard to see from the back of the room, it's much too detailed. But basically what she's come up with here is a traditional new urban community with a town center in a green, village green in the middle. She wasn't from New England, I think she was from Chicago. And on the village green, the central public square, if you will, there's basic retail. There's a grocery, there's a pharmacy, there's a library, there's a recreation center, there's a health and fitness center, all the sort of the essentials. And then that's surrounded by, these are not tombstones. Although I think a good community has a good cemetery, I really think that's a part of a good community. These are cottages, and there's also congregate living, larger apartment style living as well. And all the traffic and the cars are relegated to the outside, they really can't penetrate into the center of the town. And so it's a fairly nice, some nice thinking went into that in terms of the relationship between seniors and retail and seniors and some of these other essential things, and their need to, in a sense, be freed of the burden of traffic and dependent on automobiles to get where they need to go.